Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Unseen Wisdom, where we take a deep dive into the news and uncover the stories that really matter. Now today we're going to be talking about a story that's been generating a lot of buzz in South Africa. It's about Dr. Nasiphi Moya, the mayor of Tshwane, and the really unique approach she's been taking to, well, running a city. Um, it's causing quite a stir, and we're going to break down exactly why that is.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is that on the surface, Dr. Moya's methods seem pretty basic, but it's the commitment to these fundamental ideas that's got everyone talking.
Yeah, it's like she's gone back to the basics, focusing on stuff that we all kind of take for granted sometimes, like potholes,
Yeah.
making sure the water actually runs when you turn on the tap,
Yeah.
and that the streetlights actually, light up the streets, stuff that should be a given, but is actually making headlines because it's being done well.
Right. And, it's kind of ironic that in South Africa, just doing these basic jobs effectively is seen as something incredible. It really says a lot about the state of things and how Dr. Moya's leadership stands out.
Yeah, I mean, think about a functioning infrastructure. It affects everyone. Businesses, communities, even crime rates go down when the streets are well lit.
Exactly. It's the foundation upon which everything else is built, and Dr. Moya gets that. She's actually implemented what she calls a pyramid of needs approach to fixing Tshwane.
Ooh. A pyramid of needs. I like it. So it's like a strategic plan starting with the essentials, I'm guessing.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
can't have a fancy roof if your foundation is crumbling right.
Makes sense. So what are the levels of this pyramid?
All right, so level one at the very base is all about those core services. Water, sanitation, electricity, roads. You got to get those right first.
Got it. So once those basic needs are met, what comes next?
Level two moves up to law and order. So that means stronger by law enforcement actually working to reduce crime, tackling illegal activities head on.
Okay, so establishing a sense of safety and order across the city. What's level 3 all about?
Level three is about reclaiming city spaces. It's dealing with hijacked buildings, cleaning up the central business district, stopping the theft of important infrastructure.
So it's citywide makeover, basically. And then what about the top tiers of the pyramid?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Level four focuses on economic growth.
So creating an environment that attracts investors, businesses, jobs, the whole 9 yards.
Exactly.
Right.
And then at the very top level, five focuses on long-term development. Think sustainable infrastructure housing needs managing urban expansion.
Wow, so this pyramid approach is actually pretty comprehensive. A really interesting way to think about tackling these issues. But what makes it so effective compared to how other leaders have approached these problems?
Well, so many leaders try to go straight for that economic growth without addressing the foundational stuff first.
Putting the cart before the horse, so to speak.
Exactly. It's like trying to build a penthouse suite on top of a crumbling foundation.
Yeah, that's not going to end well.
Dr. Moya is different. She's all about creating that stable base that real progress can be built upon.
One of the things that's been in the news a lot is Dr. Moya's efforts to clean up the Tshwane CBD. From what I've read, it's been a little controversial.
Yeah, it has, and for good reason. The situation in the CBD is really complicated.
Can you give us a little background on what's happening there? What's causing all the concern?
Well, for years, there's been this growing problem with hijacked buildings in the CBD, buildings that are illegally connected to utilities used for unauthorized businesses, and they've become sort of havens for undocumented immigrants.
So it's not just about appearances then. It's a safety issue, a legality issue, and it's affecting how the city center actually functions. How has Dr. Moya been dealing with this?
Her approach has been pretty straightforward, really. Enforcing bylaws, creating designated spaces for street vendors and taxis, and she's also been conducting raids on those hijacked buildings, addressing the issue of people living there without authorization.
That's pretty bold. I imagine it's not without its critics.
Oh, definitely. It's important to remember this problem has a lot of layers. You've got property owners who've neglected their buildings, the history of apartheid and how it affected urban development. It's not a simple fix.
It sounds like Dr. Moya is making waves, but the root of the problem goes much deeper. But it sounds like she's not just clearing out these buildings. There's a plan for what happens next.
Yeah.
You got it. She wants to repurpose these buildings to meet the city's needs. Things like low-cost housing, student accommodation, even business spaces.
That's amazing. Turning a negative into a positive. It shows she's committed to finding solutions that benefit everyone. It's a pretty stark contrast to what we've seen from some other leaders, like the mayor of Johannesburg, who's taken a completely different approach to similar challenges.
It is a really interesting comparison. Dr. Moya is focused on enforcement and reclaiming city spaces, while the mayor of Johannesburg has faced a lot of criticism for his handling of things.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the different approaches to leadership and how they impact a city. What stands out to you about Dr. Moya's leadership?
One of the most compelling things is her emphasis on sustainability. She's not just thinking about her term as mayor, she's trying to create systems that will continue working even after she's gone. That's so important.
Yeah.
We've seen so many times where progress just stops or reverses when a new leader takes over. How is she making sure her work has a lasting impact? What's she doing differently?
Well, it's about building those strong institutions,
Yeah.
giving people the tools and the authority to do their jobs properly. And she's really big on transparency, making sure everything is done by the book, no cutting corners.
So it's not about one person coming in and being a hero. It's about creating a system that works.
Exactly, a culture of good governance.
A long game, but it seems like the only way to make real lasting change.
It is, and it's really inspiring to see, especially in South Africa, where, there's been a lot of disappointment with leadership.
Yeah, Dr. Moya has shown what's possible when someone just focuses on doing their job properly.
It's a good reminder that sometimes the most effective solutions aren't flashy or revolutionary. It's about going back to basics, good governance.
And people are noticing, right? I mean, there have been so many news stories and social media posts praising her work. People are seeing the improvements in Tshwane.
Yeah, it just goes to show the power of action. People are tired of empty promises. They want to see results.
And Dr. Moya is delivering.
She is. It's definitely sparked a conversation about leadership in South Africa. People are asking, why can't we have this everywhere?
That's a great question. So what does all this mean? What are the bigger implications of Dr. Moya's success? Could her approach work in other cities facing similar challenges?
That's what everyone wants to know, right?
Yeah.
If it works in Tshwane, why not elsewhere?
Right, but are there any obstacles that might prevent her approach from being replicated?
Well, every city has its own unique problems and political landscape. But I think the main takeaway from Dr. Moya's story is that change is possible, even in a system that can feel really stuck.
It's about having the courage to tackle the basics, to enforce the law, and to build a system that works for everyone.
It's easier said than done, but she's proving it can be done.
And it requires leaders who are willing to put the needs of the people first.
Absolutely. It's about genuine public service.
And Dr. Moya's approach seems to be resonating beyond just Tshwane. Some people are even saying she could be a contender for national leadership in the future.
It's an interesting thought. Her focus on practical solutions and her commitment to good governance are qualities that a lot of South Africans are looking for.
People want leaders they can trust. Leaders who get things done.
Exactly.
It would be pretty amazing to see someone who's proven themselves at the local level step onto the national stage.
It would. It really makes you wonder, could Dr. Moya's back-to-basics approach work on a national scale?
That's a big question.
It is. It would be a huge shift in how things are done.
But maybe that's what South Africa needs. A fresh perspective.
Maybe.
A leader who focuses on building a strong foundation, creating a system that benefits everyone, delivering real results that people can see and feel.
Someone who's thinking long-term, not just about the next election.
A leader who actually just does their job.
It sounds so simple, but as Dr. Moya is showing, it can make a world of difference.
It really makes you think, maybe the answer to these complex problems really is that simple. Just do the job you were elected to do. Serve the people.
It's a powerful message, and it seems to be resonating with a lot of people.
It's a story we'll definitely be keeping an eye on. So what do you think? Could Dr. Moya's approach be a model for other cities, or even for national leadership? Let us know in the comments.
We want to hear your thoughts. Yeah, it really gives you hope that positive change is possible, even in a system that can feel really stuck.
Yeah. Makes you wonder what could happen if more leaders had this kind of mindset. Back to basics, putting people first.
Absolutely. It all comes down to doing the job you were elected to do with integrity and a genuine commitment to serving the people.
Exactly. It's about action, not just talk. She's out there fixing potholes, making sure the lights are on, making sure people have clean water. Those things might seem small, but they have a huge impact on people's lives.
It's about restoring trust in government, showing people that their leaders are actually working for them.
And that could be contagious, right? It might inspire others to step up and demand more from their elected officials.
Absolutely.
So what can we learn from all of this? How can we apply these principles in our own communities, even if we're not mayors or government officials?
That's a great question. I think it starts with holding our leaders accountable, making sure they're prioritizing the people they serve.
Asking tough questions, pushing for transparency, and not settling for empty promises.
Exactly. And being engaged citizens, participating in our communities and making our voices heard.
We can all play a part in shaping the future.
We can. And who knows, maybe Dr. Moya's story will inspire a whole new generation of leaders who are dedicated to building a better future for South Africa and for the world.
That's something we can all hope for. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into Dr. Moya's work in Tshwane. We hope you found it as fascinating as we did.
It's been great talking about this with you.
And to all our viewers out there, we encourage you to keep this conversation going. What resonated with you about Dr. Moya's approach? What lessons can we all learn from her leadership? Share your thoughts in the comments below.
We'd love to hear from you.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep striving to make a positive impact in the world. Thanks for joining us.